So, I'm a pretty big gamer. If you don't know, I love games, obviously, and bikes and suds. Um, so the year up to the Dreamcast release in America, and I'm always gonna remember because it's like the most best advertising campaign I ever heard of. 9999, September 9th, 1999. Get a Dreamcast. There was a friend of mine in school. We were always talking about the Dreamcast. We are always talking about, wow, I can't wait to get one. So one day he tells me, he says, uh, I got a Dreamcast. This was like, I want to say like November, maybe the end of 98. So he told me, I said, no, you're lying, dude. You know, it comes out, next year. It hadn't come out yet. He said, no, no, no. Excuse me. So me and my dad went to a game store last night. At that time, you'd be surprised. Like there was actually independent game stores, like family owned. Like it wasn't just game. And even nowadays, GameStop is the only one. Before there was big ones. There was EB. There was Game Crazy. Before GameStop took them all out of business. But even before that, there was small little independent places, and so there was an independent place he used to shop at, and his dad would always take him there to get games, whatever. And so one day they were there, and they just saw the thing, advertising. We have a Japanese Dreamcast for sale, and so he bought it. I don't remember how much he said it cost, but it was quite a sum of money. But they got it like before it ever came out here. So he was telling me all about it. And, I said, I don't believe you, man. You're a liar. And so, short of him bringing the Dreamcast to school, which I'm sure he wouldn't have done anyway, he brought me the instruction book, which was entirely in Japanese. And at that time, I'm like, yeah, I can believe that. That's real, dude. You got it, And so he'd tell me about all the games he had, and whatever games he had games that you didn't necessarily need to speak Japanese to play, obviously, because he didn't speak Japanese or read Japanese for that matter. So he played a lot of great games, whatever. And at that time, most of the news I got about games was from magazines. When I was a kid, my mom would take me to the grocery store. While she's shopping, I would plant myself in the magazine section when there was actually about maybe a good 7, 8 different game magazines, and now there's like maybe one, if that. I don't know. Well, there's actual magazine industry for that kind of stuff. So I just sit there and read magazines all day long, and very rarely did I actually buy a magazine. I'd mostly read them and just read them. So I'd read them and whatever, and people would say stuff, and I guess it was kind of a common thing those days. There was quite a few, like I said, there's quite a few independent shops and all over the country, all over the country. But in particularly where I was from, we had quite a few independent shops there anyway, just around there, much less all over the country. And the magazines was like having questions, in the magazine, the beginning of the magazine, the front section was like question answers, reader mail, snail mail, actual mail with a stamp. And somebody said, ooh, my friend got a Dreamcast from Japan. I want to get one too. How can I get one? Blah, 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 blah. And so I was reading that letter, and the staff was writing the answer. Said, yeah, you can get one from a game store. You can import it, whatever. And the game will work on an American TV and work on an American outlet. And years later, since then, I've bought Japanese stuff, and it does work on an American outlet without a problem, and they're just like, well, the only problem is that what you would find out is if you have a Japanese console, it won't play American games. And I was like, oh man, he didn't tell me nothing about this, that dude. So I told my friend, I said, yeah, it won't play American games on your Japanese Dreamcast, dude. It's like, no, the man at the store guaranteed it would. I'm like, I just read in a magazine. He's like, well, show me the magazine. And I didn't have no money to buy the magazine. I didn't buy the magazine. I wouldn't have bought the magazine just to prove him wrong, but I said, I guarantee you, it will not work. And he's like, no, I don't believe it. So as it got closer and closer to the launch, um, I remember that day of 9999, September 9, 1999. I think the class we had was like the first period class. So I talked to him that first in the morning. I saw him, and he told me that him and his dad went to Walmart at launch day and bought like a big stack of Dreamcast games, American ones to play. And it was like funny because like the cashier was like, "Don't you want to assist?" I'm like, "No, I already got one." And he hadn't even played him yet. He couldn't wait to get home to play him after school. So the next day, the next morning, he came up to me like real, like walking, like mad, frustrated. Like, what? And I completely forgot all about this. Like, I didn't care at this point, you know. And he's like, "You were right." I'm like, "What are you talking?" He's like, "They won't play American games." It's like, "Oh yeah, I told you that, man." So his dad went back to the game store, the independent game store that is, where he got the Dreamcast from Japan. Bitched and hollered with the guy to give him his money back because the guy had said no returns. You know, I mean, after all, the guy had used it for months already at this time, and now the American one was released. There's no reason to buy an import one at this point. So he got his money back for it, and then they went and bought another American Dreamcast at the store that day, and so basically he got to play the Dreamcast for months in advance for free. You know, that was a great story.